"Ma'am, you're holding up the line." The sharp voice behind her snapped Ava out of her fog. She adjusted the baby bag, digging into her shoulder, and offered a weak smile. Mary, her 9-month-old daughter, whimpered softly in her arms. Cheeks flushed and fists clenched, seconds from a meltdown. "Sorry," Ava mumbled, dragging her scuffed suitcase through the cramped aisle. It caught on an armrest, jerking her sideways. She caught herself, clutching Mary tighter as she navigated the crowded economy cabin. Her eyes scanned the numbers. Row 19, 20, 21. Almost there. Mary let out a sharp wail. Ava fumbled through her bag for a bottle, her pulse racing. She felt the weight of eyes on her back. Then relief. An empty window seat, no one beside it. She didn't even check her ticket. She just needed to sit, sliding in. She quickly settled Mary in her lap, shushing her with soft words and gentle pats. The baby's cries faded to hiccups. Ava reached for the formula and bottle, her hands trembling. The world shrank to noise and motion and pressure. A shadow fell across her lap. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a crisp white shirt and navy slacks. He looked out of place in economy. His cool gray eyes flicked from the ticket in his hand to Ava and her baby. Ava's stomach twisted. "Oh," she said, panicked. "I'm so sorry. I thought this seat was open. I can move. Really." She started to rise, juggling her bag and child. Mary began to cry again. Ava's chest tightened. The man raised a calm hand. "It's okay. Keep the seat. I'll sit here." Without waiting, he slid into the middle seat beside her. Ava blinked. "Are you sure?" He glanced at her, then at Mary. "I'm sure." Something about his calm steadiness grounded her. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once, exhaling as he settled in. What Ava didn't know, what no one around them knew, was that the man beside her was Brian Hale, a tech CEO worth nearly $500 million. His face had graced business magazines. His name was synonymous with innovation. But today, business class was sold out. He'd taken the last economy seat to make an urgent meeting in Chicago. He had boarded expecting discomfort, maybe a loud child nearby. But not this, not a woman sitting in his seat, not a baby who looked eerily like his niece, not the jolt in his chest when her eyes met his. Tired, apologetic, full of weight. He had opened his mouth to speak, to ask her to move, then noticed the bruise, faint and fading, hidden under too light foundation. The way she held her baby protectively, the slight tremble in her hands, the fear behind her apology. And just like that, he remembered his sister, Chloe. Eyes haunted, holding her child, running from pain. Brian hadn't reached her in time. He looked again at Ava and sat down without another word. Ava slowly let her breath go. Mary, now suckling quietly, settled deeper into her arms. Ava adjusted the blanket over her, then risked a glance at the man beside her. Most people would have made a scene, complained, demanded their seat back. Not him. "I really appreciate it," she said softly. "It's just been a long day." He turned to her, face unreadable. "I can imagine." Silence settled between them, not awkward, just present. Mary drifted off to sleep, one tiny fist curled in Ava's shirt. Ava finally leaned back, peace washing over her. The plane began to taxi. Brian leaned back too, closing his eyes briefly. Two strangers, two stories, bound by a seat assignment and something unspoken. Neither knew it yet, but this flight would change everything. The conversation, the contrast between them was almost cinematic. Ava, in faded jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt faintly stained with milk, dark circles under her eyes. She shifted constantly, adjusting her grip on Mary, who squirmed restlessly in her lap. Every small sound the baby made sent a flicker of panic through Ava's eyes, as if she expected the whole plane to turn on her at the first whimper. Next to her sat Brian, cool, composed, tailored. His wristwatch alone cost more than her month's rent. Yet he seemed distant, distracted. A major contract negotiation awaited him in Chicago, billions on the line. But he found it harder to focus on that than on the woman beside him. He stole a glance from the corner of his eye. She was doing her best to be quiet, invisible. He recognized that kind of fear, the kind that teaches people to vanish in plain sight. Then Mary started crying. A sudden, sharp wail filled the cabin. Passengers groaned. A man across the aisle rolled his eyes. "Here we go," he muttered. Ava's cheeks burned. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, fumbling for the bottle. Her trembling hands dropped the cap, which rolled under the seat. She bent down, trying to reach it while holding Mary. The crying grew louder. Brian moved without a word. He leaned down, retrieved the cap, and handed it to her. "Do you need hot water?" he asked calmly. Ava blinked, surprised. I usually ask the flight attendant, but she's at the front." "I can wait." Brian pressed the call button. When the attendant arrived, he spoke before Ava could. "Could we get some hot water for her baby's bottle, please?" The attendant nodded, returned a minute later with a small cup of steaming water. Brian poured it carefully, tested the temperature on his wrist, then tightened the cap and shook the bottle gently. He handed it to Ava. Mary's cries had turned frantic. "Here," he said. Ava took it reverently. Mary latched instantly, her body relaxing against her mother's chest. Ava looked at Brian, voice barely audible. "Thank you, really." He offered a small smile but said nothing. From a few rows back, a woman whispered to her husband. Not many guys would do that. Mary let out a soft sigh, then reached out one tiny hand, grabbing Brian's finger. He froze, staring at her small fist wrapped around his. A strange warmth bloomed in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Ava watched quietly. She hadn't expected help or kindness, certainly not from a man who looked like he belonged on magazine covers. She cleared her throat. "Most people get annoyed." Brian finally looked at her. "She's a baby," he said simply. "She has a right to exist, too." Ava stared at him, and something shifted. A wall between their worlds cracked. In that cramped cabin full of strangers and noise, Brian Hale had made a choice. A small one, maybe, but to Ava it felt monumental. Because someone had chosen to be kind, not out of obligation, but because they saw her and didn't turn away. As Mary drifted into a peaceful sleep, her fingers still curled around his, Ava found herself breathing easier. Maybe not all strangers were dangerous. Maybe kindness could come from the most unexpected places. The dream and the past Mary was finally asleep, her tiny head resting against Ava's chest. The hum of the plane soothed her. Ava exhaled slowly, savoring a rare moment of stillness. Beside her, Brian sat quietly, eyes on the clouds beyond the window. The storm inside him had calmed, though he didn't know why. "Thank you again," Ava said softly, careful not to wake Mary. "Most people just roll their eyes or groan." "You didn't," Brian turned. "I did inside," he said dryly, then smirked. Ava chuckled, surprised even at her own laughter. "Half a second?" "Still a record." A pause. Then Brian asked, "Where are you headed?" "Chicago," she replied. "Staying with my cousin while I figure things out." "Fresh start?" She nodded, brushing Mary's hair. "Hopefully." Brian gave her space, sensing she had more to say. "I used to teach preschool," she said after a moment. "I loved it. The chaos, the laughter. Then I got married. Too young. Thought I knew what love looked like." She looked away. It wasn't love. It was control. He watched everything. My calls, my texts, what I wore, who I spoke to. I stopped recognizing myself. I stayed even when it hurt. I thought I had to. But then Mary came. She looked down at her daughter. I couldn't let her grow up thinking that kind of love was normal. One night I packed a bag and left. No plan, just the two of us. "That's brave," Brian said quietly. "It doesn't feel brave," Ava admitted. "I'm still scared. Every time someone looks at me too long, I wonder if they're judging me or if he's coming." "I get that," Brian said softly. Ava turned to him. "Do you?" He hesitated, then nodded. "My fiancée died in a car crash. She was on her way to meet me to celebrate a promotion. After that, I stopped trying to feel much of anything. Business made sense. Emotions didn't." Ava's gaze softened. She saw the pain behind his calm. Brian reached into the seat pocket, pulled out a notepad, and began folding the paper. "What are you doing?" Ava asked. "Something my sister used to do. It helped her with anxiety." "She taught me," A few minutes later, he handed her a small paper star and placed it beside Mary's hand. "For her," he said, "to wish for better days." Ava stared at it, a lump in her throat. "No one's ever made anything for her before?" "There's a first for everything," he said. She smiled, genuinely this time. The cabin lights dimmed. Somewhere ahead, someone snored. Exhaustion pulled at her. "You can sleep," Brian said gently. "I'll watch her." Ava hesitated. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Promise!" Within minutes, she drifted off, head tilted toward him, Mary curled in her arms. Brian watched them quietly. Two strangers, one fragile bond. He reached for an airline blanket, draped it over them, tucking the edges around Mary. Then he leaned back, eyes on the little paper star. Maybe something inside him was changing, too.